doing today? I'm excited to be here in Dublin. This is great. You know, I love coming to these events as a young entrepreneur to come here and learn. It's great to be here with all of our people, SaaS company builders. Ah, man, this feels great. So today we're here to learn about how to build a billion-dollar category king and not get forked. That's what we say in Canada. Okay, do you have any Irish people? How do you say this word? Fact or fooked or something. Okay. Anyway, well, you go ahead. So a little bit about me. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been doing this for quite a while. I'm based in Toronto, Canada. I'm working on this company called Influitive. And Influitive, we help companies grow faster by discovering, nurturing, and mobilizing their advocates. Okay, so a new category of software. We've got over 300 customers, including some of the biggest in the world. We've raised a bunch of money, top-tier investors, got a lot of employees. We've just launched our operations here in Europe, which is pretty exciting. As I said, this is not my first rodeo. So the first company I started, a company called Eloqua. Eloqua was a pioneer in the marketing automation software industry. Had a great outcome for stockholders. The company went public in 2012. It was sold to Oracle in 2013 for around $1 billion. So great outcome. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I've learned a lot of things, and I'm going to share some of the good, the bad, and the ugly with you today, including my slide art there. So, quick test. Take a look at this picture and tell me what you see is missing. Yeah, conspicuous by his absence, your friendly neighborhood founder CEO is not there, right? And the reason why I'm not there is a result of a big mistake that I made. That's the fooked part, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about the billion-dollar category part. One thing I will say is the mistakes and the jostles along the way are part of the journey. It's part of the journey of leadership, builds character. Before I was a SaaS entrepreneur, and one of the really original SaaS entrepreneurs, Eloqua was founded around 2000, just to give you a sense of how long I've been at this. I was an academic. My job was to learn, actually. All these books make me feel comfortable. And so I love this quote, which is, I never lose, I either win or learn. And I really would encourage a lot of you here to think about your journey of leadership. I hope this is not the last company that you're building. Hope this is one of a string of companies, and every time you build one, you're going to learn and get better and better, and that is the attitude that I have. So scaling a SaaS company is hard. That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn how to scale a SaaS company, sales, marketing, BD, product. I'm going to talk to you about how to build a new category, which in some ways is quite a bit harder. The big reason why is when you build a category, you're doing more than just doing the distribution and product around your company. It's actually the entire category. The first rule of category marketing is you market the category first, and then yourself as the leader in that category. Now, why would you do that? Well, if you think about some of the most iconic companies of our time, think about Salesforce.com, you think about Tesla, think about Uber. These are entirely new categories of companies, and they changed the world. They put their stamp on this world. We're not here for very long, folks. Right? I don't know what you believe in terms of the next life. We're not here very long, so we might as well try to change the world, try to divert a river while we're here, and it's one of the reasons why I do this. So here's a question for you. What do these things have in common? The Mongolian Empire, Africanized killer bees, or Salesforce.com? That's a tough one, okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Mongol Empire. Really one of the most remarkable empires that's ever come to be. 2/3 of the known world were occupied by the Mongols, and it was a pair of disruptive innovations that allowed this to happen. Okay? The first was the invention of the stirrup. Okay, Mongolian horsemen were able for the first time to, have you seen those pictures of them riding backwards and shooting arrows at people? Right? They were able to do that because of their invention of the stirrup. And all the tactics around their horse riding allowed them to conquer new nations in a way they'd never seen before. So they had an amazing ability to invade, but that's not the only thing. They also had an ability to sustain their innovation, the countries that they built, that they took over. So they also invented a communication system for being able to manage their entire empire. You know who managed their empire? Women. Okay, so Mongolian women were the most emancipated in the world, and the entire bureaucracy of the Mongolian Empire was run by women, which actually was quite an innovation at the time. So both penetration and scaling up, you need both those innovations in order to build a new category. Africanized killer bees. So we're in Europe, so we're safe from these bees here. But in the Americas, all the bees are now Africanized bees, okay? So the first African bees were imported to Brazil in 1957, and they quickly were able to mate with the normal European honeybees, and within 30 years, they took over the entire Americas with an amazing tactic of taking the queen out of the European honeybee, then taking that out, replacing with the Africanized honeybee. Absolutely incredible way of growing. Quite fearsome. These will sting 10 times more than a normal bee, will chase you for a kilometer before you jump into the water and escape from them. However, they're also just as good on defense as they are on offense, and they produce huge amounts of honey, and they reproduce much faster than European honeybees. Right? So they both are able to invade, and they're able to sustain their innovation. And now all the bees are honeybees. Now, I'll also say one thing about the Mongols. Genghis Khan has got further spread of his DNA than anyone else ever lived. There's a good chance there's a whole lot of you that have Genghis Khan DNA in you. So a lot of people also are Mongolian in a small way. Salesforce.com has a similar structure in that they have an amazing innovation that they leveraged in the multi-tenant database and cloud, and are able to win companies with their CRM's technology in the early 2000s very easily. They also, however, had some incredible sustainable types of innovations, like their V2 Mom and other structures. If you read Mark Benioff's books, you read all about the kinds of things he's built in his companies in order to sustain those innovations. So all of these are called transformative empires. The world is entirely different because these companies have existed. They've invented entire new categories of empires and bees and companies. And so I find this personally very exciting. And wouldn't it be amazing if you could be like the architect and you could have a step-by-step process for how you go and create new categories? Wouldn't that be awesome? Well, that is my process for building companies. I'm going to take you through it today in the next 13 minutes. Okay, so in terms of the biggest idea of this talk is that category creation comes from not from amazing new technology that you develop. Where it comes from is what I call the underserved hero. The underserved hero are basically, for lack of a better term, freaks that because of disruptive trends become powerful and they become numerous over time. And by serving them with a better piece of technology and a better business model, and you surf the wave of these freaks becoming dominant in society, you can build an amazing company. That is my method. So, I'll give you an example. Here are some freaks. On the left-hand side, you'll see one of them is me. Down there, these are, that's not true. These are the old-time bodybuilders in the 1960s, and there are some entrepreneurs that have made incredible amounts of money by studying these people in a lot of detail and saying, you know what, because of some underlying trends in society, unhealthy food and lifestyles, you know, one day this idea of building muscles is actually going to become much more universal. And even in Dublin, which is not the healthiest city in the world, you will find weightlifting gyms everywhere. And there are some entrepreneurs that have made a lot of money, whether it's in gyms or clothing and that sort of thing, by understanding these people and betting on the fact that one day they'll become more powerful and they'll become more numerous. So some more practical examples. Let's look at Salesforce.com. Who is the underserved hero at Salesforce? Right? Well, the underserved hero at Salesforce was a time-stressed and cash-stressed sales manager in the early 2000s. They needed to supply sales technology for their sales team, but they didn't have money and they didn't have time. So along came the idea of having good enough Salesforce automation. It really was just good enough. It was not that great in the early days. It was good enough in order to get in there and for a swipe of the credit card and a sales manager could outfit their entire team very quickly using this technology. These people, these sort of more metric-oriented, more tactical sales managers have now become the mainstream. Right? Most of the sales managers in SaaS in the world now look like these folks. Some examples from my history. So at Eloqua, who was the underserved hero there? Well, it was the demand generator. And so it was really interesting. In the early 2000s, as I was building Eloqua, I would go to these offices, and there were some special people that on their whiteboards would have funnels and flowcharts and metrics and equations and that sort of thing. They wouldn't have like taglines and Pantone colors and this sort of thing. And these people didn't even want to call themselves marketers. They didn't want to sully their name with that. They called themselves demand generators. We create a repeatable process for generating demand. That's what we do here as demand generators. And this was a really, really exciting trend for me, and I could see that because of the underlying trends that were happening, because of the internet and the change in buying habits, where buyers wanted to sit back and research in peace before approaching a company, if you could nurture prospects until they were sales ready, and then get a sales rep involved, you would have a chance to build a really big business. So we built a company around these people, right, around these demand-generating people. And they become powerful and numerous. A director of demand gen back then made about $75,000 a year. Today, they're well over $200,000 a year. A lot of the CMOs that are here at this conference have a background in demand generation, right? So that was a good bet. So the bet wasn't so much on brilliant technology. It was more like being a cultural anthropologist and study these freaks. And they really were at the time. There was only a small group of these people. And they really were very different from other marketers. But understanding them better than any of my peers, and we built a big business based on them. So the category comes from the minds, right, the people of these special people that because of disruptive trends, they become powerful and numerous. We got it, right? All right, Influitive, so what's going on here? So saw some of the same trends, but here, this time, talking more about what we call advocate marketers. So these are people that focus their time on getting customer evidence, like testimonials and videos and getting referrals and setting up reference calls. Like, not always the most exciting part of marketing, right? Going to change. This is the most exciting area of marketing today, mark my words. This is a very, very exciting area. And the reason why is because of the underlying trends that are going on. We're now in the age of the social web. When was the last time you bought something risky or expensive because of an email you received from a vendor? Right? Been a long time for me. Or like going to a homepage of a website. Does that convince you to buy anything? Like, no, right? You get convinced by knowledgeable peers that are kind of relevant for you, right? Well, that's happening everywhere. So who are the people that are getting all this customer evidence? Well, those are these folks right here. These are the advocate marketers. And we believe that these people are the underserved hero, and one day they'll become absolutely mainstream, and they'll be making even more money than the demand gen leaders, and they'll become the CMOs of the future. That's a bet that we're making. Okay, before I move on, hometown favorite here, Intercom. Category creator or not? Well, if they are, who is the underserved hero? Okay, if you catch me in a break, we can talk about it. All right, things that I learned. Number one, you've probably heard this before, customer success is a bedrock on which everything else is built. This is more true than ever before and more true if you're a category creator. And look, customer success is not just, okay, the people are using our software and are getting engaged. You've got to go way, way deeper. Okay, you've got to get to the area where your customers are getting true strategic value from your product. You need to talk to really senior people in that company and say, are we driving the top metrics in the company? That's a step above that most software entrepreneurs don't get to. I'd encourage you to get to that stage, especially if you're trying to build a new category that other people don't know. If you're not driving fundamental value, you're not going to do very well. Number two, you need advocates. So the thing about being in category is, again, this is a new thing that no one's ever heard of before. So what's the best way to go to market? Well, the best way to go to market is get relevant peers doing all the sales and marketing for you. Nobody knows who you are, but people know who their peers are. So you really want to get these happy customers advocating for you. And your messaging should really be more missionary in nature than mercenary. Right? So when you're building a category, you need people who believe in your mission. That's actually the most important thing. More than skill, more than anything else, a sort of passion for your mission. Super important if you're trying to build something brand new. Advocates are valuable in almost every stage of the buying cycle, right? From generating awareness to accelerating leads to closing deals and even reducing churn. So more and more, this is going to be really important. People don't want to hear your marketing messages or talk to your sales reps. They want to hear from their peers. Advocates are better at it than customers. You really want a large army of unpaid folks that are doing all the marketing for you, especially in this day and age where people don't really trust anything other than their peers. That is a fact. I don't have that data, but it's there, trust me. Team of advocates within your company. So this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made coming out of Eloqua, is what I didn't realize was my number one customer actually were my employees, and I realized it too late. Look, we're in a war for talent these days, folks, right? It's really hard to hire. I mean, even in Toronto, where it used to be easy, it's lethal. We're competing with every major player, lots of funded companies. People can work wherever they want to work. And so what I'd encourage you to do is think about your employee experience like a product. How do I get my employees to enthusiastically recommend me to others? Think about that employee experience. A lot of people don't do that, and I encourage you to do that. Because here's the thing. If you want to drive value and experience for your employees, for your customers, it all starts with your employees. Like, who's the one who builds the great products and delivers amazing service? It's your people. So, again, this was flipped for me at my last company, where I really thought about measurable value for customers first, and then, okay, employees are like lucky to work at my company. That's flipped. Now I focus really mostly on building an amazing culture and a great experience, and they make it happen for customers. Glassdoor is how I measure this. If Glassdoor is not a big deal here in Europe, it will be. This is probably the most important factor that we have in hiring good people, so I'd encourage you to invest in your Glassdoor reviews. Now a diversion. We're going to go into the Fuchs part of this presentation. The reason why I was not ringing that NASDAQ bell, which continues to be real deep fire within me. I'm really excited about ringing that bell next time. It's on my dark days what I think about. But the reason why I didn't make it there was because my board of directors had different ideas who should run the company. And that's mainly because I really mismanaged my board of directors. My board was probably the most dysfunctional board you could imagine at Eloqua. And so one thing I really resolved to do is build a much more effective board of directors. Those of you who are looking to raise money, you will have to deal with this issue, and I encourage you to not do what most entrepreneurs do, which is sort of brush it under the rug, but make this a headline item if you want to avoid the mistakes that I made. So the first thing I'd say is the board of directors is a team, just like your management is a team. Now, a lot of people don't think of their board that way, but you know what? If you look at some of the most successful startups, they actually also have an amazing board team as well, and when companies go awry, it's often their team that goes wrong. So your board is a team, and it's a weird team, right? Sometimes I think of it as like kabuki theater. You've got an investor, you're not sure which mask they're wearing on that day. So it's really important to actually invest more in the board team in some ways than on the management team. And there's two major considerations, and that is structure and culture. So in terms of structure, between my time at Eloqua and Influitive, I did a whole bunch of research on how to build a better board, and here's what I learned. I read lots of academic papers on the subject, and here's what you need to do. Smallest possible size. If you can get a board of 3, that's great. Most likely it's going to be 5. You want the smallest number of investors on there. So if you've raised a Series A and a Series B, you do not have 2 Series A investors and 1 Series B investor. If you can help it, you want to have the smallest number of investors. Those investors should be value added as much as possible, which means former operators, if you can help it. They should have built a business before. A lot more valuable if that's happened. You want the maximum number of independents. Independents are people who've built companies before, who are passionate about what you do, who know a lot about building boards, and you want to have as many of them as possible. So you don't want a lot of investors, you want lots of independents, and you also don't want management team members, ideally. So you might think that your co-founder on that board is there to protect you. Not always true. Not always true. So you don't necessarily want your co-founder and CTO on that board. So that's the right structure. Now, you know that if you want to build the right management team, you have to make tough decisions sometimes, right? You're not always going to have the same people from start all the way to 100 million. You're going to make a lot of changes along the way, right? Why wouldn't it be that way on the board too? Well, it is. I've made 5 substitutions on my board, including a Series A investor, which I raised an additional 11 million plus to buy out, just so I could have the right team. Okay, so I know I'm a little maniacal about it, but you know, this is important. All right, so finally, culture. So right after my time here in Ireland, I'm flying back home and I'm having a 3-day board offsite. A 3-day board offsite, isn't that nuts? I'm playing golf with the board. I'm a really shitty golf player. We're singing songs by the fire, playing Kumbaya. We've hired a therapist to go and get us to talk about our childhood. I mean, seriously. This stuff's really, really important because, again, you want to get that mask down, right? You want to see the real human being behind that board member. You need them to see you. Right, so building that really strong board culture, we have our board has its own vision and mission and values, sort of separate from the company that we've agreed as a team. So that's what great teams do. And when you put together a great structure and culture, you have potentially a really effective team. That concludes my prepared remarks. I think I have time for one question. Did I say something funny? All right. Or is that just a whirlwind and like, oh, what about, oh, that's right, I know why. That's why you're laughing. It's because it's here. Excuse me. Oh. Who had Underserved Heroes for Intercom? I'm curious. Does anybody have an answer? Anyone think they know the answer? First of all, I do think they're a category creator. I don't think they've created really whiz-bang technology. In fact, I created similar technology 18 friggin' years ago at Eloqua. Our first product was a interrupting text window, just like Intercom. Okay, but they did do something really interesting around the Underserved Heroes. Anyone know what it is? Yell it out. Who is it? Yeah. Well, the original one actually was the growth marketer and product manager. The growth-oriented product manager, I believe, was the original Underserved Hero. 10 years ago, they didn't have any of these people, right? The original use case was actually in application in-application sort of text windows. So if you look at all of their marketing and intercom, it's really all about product management. They did this whole big thing about jobs to be done. Why would they do that? Well, it's because they're elevating and celebrating that hero, that growth-oriented product manager, and they built an amazing, valuable company all around it. It's not about the technology, folks. It's about the underserved hero, and I think they've done a good job. All right, that concludes the presentation today. Thank you.